Hey, welcome to Jeremy Snell's recruitment training. If you're looking to deepen your capabilities, if you're seeking to improve your productivity and your performance, this is the channel for you. In every episode, I will unpack practical and tactical things that you can do to help you to think with greater clarity, make better decisions, and ultimately make more money. Feel free to subscribe, feel free to like and to comment. And now let's get on with today's topic. At the time of recording this episode, BD is still a really strong subject in recruitment, with many recruitment professionals and business owners seeking to be able to grow their client base, to be able to increase the number of placements that are being made. Basically, any kind of activity which is designed to drive bottom line performance in terms of profits. Now, one of the things which I'm seeing, and it seems to be something that affects the experienced recruiter far more than it does anyone else. And in terms of its driver, we could look at it and say there's some kind of professional complacency in it. We could say that there is some kind of potential procrastination taking place. But ultimately what I see is, with experience, there comes this innate ability to be able to recognize opportunities, to be able to tweak things, to be able to refine processes, to be able to shorten down timescales. Many of us may even refer to it as being the ability to cut corners, to have that level of experience that allows us to be able to make a judgment to say, I don't need to do that bit of work. I know what I'm doing here, so I'm just going to move past that. I'm just going to cut that corner. And as corners start to get cut, and results aren't necessarily impacted in the immediate process. So let's say, for example, we have an experienced recruiter who is working on filling a job. And the process of filling a job, right, in every single recruitment agency, I really don't mind whether it is temp or it's contract, it's permanent. In every single agency, with every derivative of the different types of recruitment, the process goes from A to Z. A, newly assigned role in whatever format it is, whether it is contingent or retained. Often the beginning part of a process starts with an instruction. Hey, find me one of these. And we go from A, newly mandated job, through to Z, successfully filled job. And that journey from A to Z is a journey that experienced recruiters have been down many times before. And because they've been down this path so many times before, they know that if there's an opportunity to be able to shorten that cycle, and many of them may even have that poster on their wall that says, time kills all deals. They may feel that they need to move at a certain speed to be able to ensure that the proximity of A to Z is so close together that the decisions being made by the client are going to happen in their favour. So as everyone is off on this journey from A to Z, often what happens is the experienced recruiter starts to miss out some of the letters. And as they start to miss out some of the letters, they're less thoughtful about the journey from B to Y, because they're so focused on the journey from A to Z. And because they're not thinking about the journey from B to Y, they reduce their ability to be able to discover things that perhaps with less experience they would have realised were opportunities in front of them. So let's take something really simple like the experienced recruiter who gets mandated by an existing customer to go and find a contractor. And at the moment that they're briefed on the role, they can already think of 2 or 3 people who are in their network. So they go straight to the 2 or 3 people that they can think of. They cover those 2 people off. They present them to the client. They arrange interviews. A placement gets made. And then they're back into hunting mode, looking for their next opportunity. And what they didn't do, that perhaps with less experience they would have done, is speak to more people, to speak to more contenders as candidates, to be able to extend their network, to be able to extend their reach, to have more conversations potentially with strangers. A, this would help them to be able to grow and nurture the pool of people that they network with, and B, it may have helped them to discover things that they didn't know. That moment that they are talking to somebody and they have that opportunity to find out more about where they've recently been working, the types of things that they've been involved with, dare I say it, the leads, the intel, the information that starts to be able to feed their system. It gets lost, and it gets lost because that experienced recruiter is on a journey to get from A to Z so quickly. They've missed out B, they've missed out C, they've missed out D. And many of those letters that they used to follow, that they used to adhere to when they had less experience, that used to feed them with the intelligence, the leads and the commercial information that helps them to be able to build pipeline, it starts to get lost. And this is where we see the experienced recruiter ruefully say to themselves, I need to go back to the basics. And they know exactly what that means, because they know where they've been cutting their corners. They know where there's been opportunities missed because of a simple lack of diligence, perhaps, in being able to do the core fundamentals as to what good looks like when delivering an assignment. And I see business owners educate their consultants to end up in the same trap. When I see business owners with somebody who is semi-experienced, and they start to tell them, call this guy, call her, call him, they're good for the job. They start to hold the person back from learning their marketplace. They start to prevent this person from having conversations with individuals that could generate the information required to build an accurate market map as to what's going on in the universe today. And it stops them being able to do what I would consider to be more educated sales outreach and BD. And as I said at the very beginning of the episode, we're in a time when BD is critical for many recruitment businesses. And the thought process of BD conjures up ideas of cold calls, of email outreach to strangers, of tapping up managers on LinkedIn with well-crafted and overly wordy messages that don't seem to actually go anywhere. Because there's a lack of knowledge, a lack of intelligence, a lack of content that is being discovered through well-nurtured conversations to help to be able to map out truly what is going on in their space. And this is when the experienced recruiter starts to find that their usual suspects, those customers that they've relied on for the last couple of years, just aren't hiring in the same level of abundance. If we see a shift in how the economy is performing, we often see that money moves. And those businesses who had it no longer do, and other organisations that perhaps weren't on our map, they now are the curators of that money. And if we've not been asking the right questions to the right people as we've been going about doing our recruiting, and we've been racing from A to Z to be able to get a placement done, and we've negated consistently the journey from B to Y, or we've consistently missed out the same letters, if we're forever missing out G and P and Q and Y itself, we are reducing our ability to be able to have the agility required to do meaningful BD outreach. And I've become more and more of the opinion that when we think about BD, and when you think about BD, and thoughts turn to sales calls, the actual sales call itself, in my opinion, is only 10% of BD. There is so much other stuff that needs to be done. And if all of your time allocation to doing BD is being pointed at cold outreach in whatever media and whatever format is taking place, and you're not investing enough time in the BD work that helps you to be able to truly understand where your market is today through the eyes and the ears of people within your network, and from identifying strangers who've yet to become part of your network, a lot of that work is done with candidates. And in our race to be able to get a job filled, particularly if we feel as though we are aware of who the contenders are, we miss the feed that helps us to be able to generate good quality sales conversations and good quality business development activity. And then when we look at the other things that make up the B to Y process, referrals to other people, whether that is referrals that we could generate to introduce us to other candidates that could become part of a shortlist or become part of a future shortlist or could become part of our network. In the old days, right? Talking about the old days, right? My definition of old days may be further back in the past than other people's definition of the old days, right? But in the old days, a real feed to help you to be able to stand out from competitors was your ability to be able to engage with individuals that others couldn't. Referrals was such a strong way to be able to do that, right? And as I spend time in recruitment agencies today, on sales floors, in training rooms, delivering coaching on a one-to-one basis, the level of thought, the quality of questions, the level of engagement that is taking place to generate referrals is at an all-time low. And a referral, in my opinion, to another candidate can create extreme value, particularly if you're introduced to somebody that others aren't getting the opportunity to talk to. And then when we think about referrals in terms of sponsorship, there are so many opportunities that exist out there for candidates that you are interacting with to introduce you to key stakeholders in organisations that they work with or organisations that they've worked with in the past to help you to be able to generate your next client. And if you're not winning 1 or 2 clients each month through good quality referrals, you're probably racing too quickly from A to Z without enough thought for B to Y. Some of these human beings that you interact with who are candidates who end up being too expensive, or the job's too far away, or perhaps they are more senior than the legacy CV from your database suggested. Some of these individuals are, at worst, 1 step away from being promoted to being the level of a client. Many of them will be working in roles where they have influence, where they are attending meetings, where there is an opportunity for them to be able to sponsor you. Yet very few, and I may even include you in this, listener, very few recruiters actually talk to their candidates about how they serve an audience of professionals to help them to be able to improve the way that they do their job. And the frame of that means we no longer flip candidates when we have that mentality. We don't have to talk to a candidate to then flip them to become a client. We build a relationship with a human being who by design has a certain job title working in a specific industry, which means that at some point we will work together. Whether I end up hiring on your behalf to help you to build a team, or I help you to be able to identify your next opportunity, we will work together. There is no need for a flip. We're purely engaging with a professional who works in our market. And when we do that, as we follow that journey from A to Z, whilst acknowledging every letter from B to Y, we build a stronger pool of connections who are thinking about us and associating us with the right things. If we're overly blinkered on the mission being to fill the job and only to fill the job, we may well disengage from those people who aren't appropriate for the specific role because we're in too much of a hunter mode. When actually, if we used our peripheral vision a little bit better, we may find that we're having conversations with people who are the gateway to our next placement, whether that is placing them in something else or actually engaging with them and working with them as a partner to help them to be able to hire into their team or to get the advocacy or the sponsorship that's required to help us to be able to do that in their business. And then as the process progresses, every single one of these potential candidates may well have to resign if they get the job. And if we're not thinking about our business development as being a trigger to help us to think about how do we build and nurture relationships with managers who have yet to discover that somebody in their team is exploring other things, so that by the time we arrive at a point of a resignation, we've actually onboarded the customer. Life is so much easier when you onboard the customer before they give you their first job, because we've done all of the legwork to help them to be able to understand who we are, what we stand for, how we operate, and what it is that we do that makes such a significant difference to the outcomes that they generate. Because we don't have to talk about being better or quicker or faster than our competitors. We can start to show that we're a little bit more engaged with them based upon the challenges and the issues that they might face, that helps us to create a unique proposition for those people. And that becomes so much easier to do when we're tracking a process that I call an NGJ, next generation job. All of those individuals who are considering making a move, each of them becomes an indicator as to where there may be a future vacancy in as near a future as the next 2 weeks, or what may be as far off as the next 3 months. But certainly by engaging and building relationships with the leadership teams in those businesses today, I can start to onboard my customers for next month and next quarter. And then when we look at the placement being done, when we're successful and we are the agency who has placed that person into their next job, the most valuable candidate in the process is not the placement. The most valuable candidate in the process is the person who came second. Because the person who came second still has an appetite. They still have an itch that they need to serve. They're still looking for that opportunity. And when you look back in the wake of all of the activity that you've done to get yourself to the point of filling the job, there could be half a dozen individuals, each of whom could still be on that mission to find their next thing. And if we just leave them in the long grass because we don't have anything suitable for them today, we miss the entire flywheel that exists. That when we focus on B to Y, we've mapped out the landscape of all of the donor companies that we've been identifying talent from. We've been identifying what we would consider to be the strongest contenders in that space to help our existing customer to be able to make an accurate hire, which has created a micro talent pool of people that we can now work with. And we have now crafted a successful placement, which means that we have a case study, we have a client testimonial, we have a candidate testimonial, we have all of the collateral we need to start to be able to build a marketing flywheel to get the most out of the piece of work that we've done. Or we just do what many experienced consultants do, which is celebrate the moment of having done the placement, reflect for a moment to think about what other business may be available from that customer, and then start to ring round the usual suspects, those people who've been giving me business in the past, to see if I can pick up my next job, without enough thought to everything that had happened as we had ploughed that marketplace to identify people as prospective candidates on behalf of that client to help us to be able to map out that marketplace and to help us to be able to build that flywheel to make our next placement. And the reality is, for every one placement that you make, there could be 5 more opportunities that you uncover that gives you your next retained assignment, or that next piece of work to place your next contractor and to grow your book of runners, or that client that you can onboard that then gives you an increased pipeline of good quality temp assignments to help you to be able to grow your desk. So for everyone who's listening to this, however you choose to process this, it's entirely up to you. But seriously, think about that journey from A to Z that you are consistently going on, and think about the letters from B to Y and what you may be missing that could revolve around leads, intelligence, commercial insights, market mapping, referrals, next generation jobs, potential backfills, high quality candidates who aren't suitable for the specific role, who could actually become high value candidates to take to market, the people who come second, the people who come third, and then the entire case study backed up by 2 testimonials from happy customers to help you to be able to land your next 5 assignments. Then I think you're applying a more intelligent approach to business development without having to put all of your reliance in that 10% of the BD activity, which is the cold outreach, be that sales calls, in-mails or emails. As with all of these things, I'd love to hear any feedback that you've got. And if you have any thoughts as to where you feel from B to Y you could get a little bit sharper, take a moment or two to think about how you could build your to-do list to help to make sure that you are focused on doing those things a little bit more consistently. And then I'll see you on another episode in the very near future. Hey, thank you for watching. If you want to continue to get access to more high quality training and coaching ideas to help you to stay inspired as a recruiter, make sure that you like, make sure that you subscribe, and check out the description below for relevant links to tools, frameworks and other ideas to keep you moving forward. And I look forward to seeing you on another one very soon.